All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring the absolute extremes of football fandom. The passion for the beautiful game is exactly what makes it so globally beloved, right? But when that passion warps into sheer, unadulterated hostility, well, it creates a deeply toxic culture. So we're going to explore this dark side of sports by looking at two very distinct eras and break down exactly how this toxicity has evolved from the physical terraces to our digital screens. Let's get into it.
I mean, just think about that quote for a second. The sheer scale of that claim is staggering. And we're not talking about geopolitics here. We are talking about a single football transfer in Glasgow, Scotland back in 1989. A 10-year-old fan at the time actually said it felt like a bigger story in their city than the fall of the Berlin Wall, which happened that exact same year. To understand how simply kicking a ball across a patch of grass could trigger a cultural earthquake of that magnitude, we really have to dig into the deeply entrenched history behind it.
And it all comes down to the two absolute giants of Scottish football, Celtic and Rangers. This is not just your everyday sporting rivalry. It's basically a proxy war steeped in centuries of history. So, following the Reformation, Scotland was largely Protestant. But then, in the mid-19th century, tens of thousands of Irish Catholics immigrated to escape the famine. This created deep religious and political divides. Celtic was formed by a Catholic parish, though they maintained an open signing policy. Rangers, on the other hand, were formed by Protestant students and took a different path. Influenced by radical Protestant organizations in the 1920s, Rangers established an unwritten rule. They simply did not sign Catholic players. For decades, this localized tension just simmered, and the football pitch essentially became the ultimate battleground.
So, enter Mo Johnston. His story is, well, it's the ultimate footballing betrayal. Born into a Catholic family, Johnston signed for his boyhood club Celtic in 1984 and became a totally beloved idol. He moved over to France to play for Nantes in 1987, but by May of 1989, he wanted to come home. He publicly agreed to return to Celtic, but then, fast forward just 2 months to July 1989, and he shockingly signs for their fierce rivals, Rangers. I mean, wow. Rangers had just signed a Catholic, breaking their decades-old unwritten rule, and it was a former Celtic hero with a notorious past against them, no less.
And the irony here is just off the charts. Just weeks before making history, Johnston had literally said, "There is no other British club I could play for apart from Celtic." So what actually changed? Well, Celtic was struggling financially and delayed paying his transfer fee. Sensing an opening, Rangers manager Graham Souness swooped right in. Now Souness, whose own wife and children were Catholic, frankly didn't care about the club's sectarian rule. He offered a higher salary and much better sporting prospects, and eventually convinced Johnston to cross enemy lines for a massive £1.5 million fee, leaving a completely stunned Celtic in the dust.
The backlash? It was absolute chaos. Glasgow basically went into a state of emergency. Rangers fans, totally furious that their club's Protestant-only tradition was shattered, were laying funeral wreaths outside the stadium reading "The End of 116 Years of Tradition." You had grown men in tears, literally burning their scarves and season tickets in the street. On the flip side, Celtic fans felt deeply humiliated and betrayed by one of their own. They instantly formed the We Hate Mo Johnston Supporters Club. This anger wasn't hidden behind a screen. It was entirely visceral, physical, and playing out right there on the pavement.
But the hostility didn't just stay in the stands. It followed him straight into the dressing room. To really understand Johnston's bizarre, quiet struggle on the inside, you have to hear about Rangers' legendary kitman, Jimmy Bell. For months, Bell refused to lay out Johnston's shirt like he did for every other player. He even purposefully withheld Johnston's pre-match chocolate bars. It wasn't until Johnston scored a late match-winning goal against Celtic in the Old Firm Derby that Bell finally accepted him. It just highlights how unbelievably ingrained this localized toxicity truly was.
The modern digital crucible, from physical stands to digital screens. Okay, so decades have passed since Mo Johnston, and the nature of football's toxic culture has definitely mutated.
Which brings us to Gonzalo Higuain. 350 plus. That is the staggering number of goals Higuain scored throughout his phenomenal career. We're talking Real Madrid, Napoli, Juventus. He is objectively one of the most prolific strikers of his entire generation. And yet, if you look online today, his legacy is inexplicably overshadowed by digital harassment.
And here is the wild paradox of modern football. 90 million euros. That was the record-breaking transfer fee Juventus paid for Higuain, making him the most expensive Argentine player ever at the time. But all that money, all that status, it couldn't protect his mental health from modern fans.
Because he missed a few high-profile shots for Argentina in the World Cup and Copa America finals, the internet basically reduced his entire massive career down to those singular errors, relentlessly turning him into a global meme.
In Higuain's own words, the whiplash of modern fandom is just incredibly severe. Players today are treated like disposable deities. One week, you've got a massive stadium chanting your name in perfect unison, making you feel invincible. 2 weeks later, after one bad game, those exact same people, multiplied by millions more online, are insulting your very existence. There is no loyalty anymore. It's just hypercritical judgment delivered instantly to your phone.
But the absolutely crucial point here is how this affects the actual human being at the center of the storm. Higuain admitted, "I'm tired of not being able to react and having to deal with this disrespect." He's pointing out the agonizing one-way mirror of social media. People insult his family, disrespect his life, all while knowing he's professionally obligated to just stay silent and take it. He highlights this weird societal idea that just because an athlete makes millions of dollars, the public somehow gets a free pass to strip them of their human dignity.
And you can see the ultimate toll this takes right here. These are Gonzalo Higuain's actual retirement plans. He doesn't want to be a TV pundit, he doesn't want to be a manager. He wants to explore the kitchen, play the guitar, learn English, and as he puts it, get very far away from a sport that he says becomes more and more toxic every single day. A man who achieved his ultimate childhood dreams is walking away from the game completely exhausted by the culture surrounding it.
So, that leaves us with this final thought to wrap up our explainer today. We've seen the literal street riots of 1980s Glasgow and the psychological exhaustion of a modern superstar hounded by digital avatars. I really want you to ask yourself, when does passion cross the line into poison? How do we as fans consume this sport, and what is our own digital footprint doing to the actual human beings at the center of the beautiful game? It is definitely something we all need to deeply consider the next time we reach for our keyboards.